Power of Organized Layfolk, mutual aid 3 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, brought to you by Hunter College and the Mellon Public Humanities and Social Justice Program. My name is Mia Svetovich, and I am your moderator. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the following people: my faculty advisor, Professor Jacqueline Nasky Brown of the Anthropology Department, the co-directors of the Mellon program, Professor Linda Martin Alkoff and Professor Nico Israel, as well as the Mellon program's principal investigator, Jonathan Fanton. A special thank you to the program administrator, Ashley Fenstermaker, and the graduate mentors, Jay Perez Torres, Robert Yates, and Priska Edwards. I'm a Hunter College undergraduate student. I'm studying health psychology. I was accepted into the Mellon program for the fall 2022 and spring 2023 academic school year. The Mellon program has two parts, an academic research portion and a public outreach component. My academic research was heavily influenced by Health Communism, a surplus manifesto by Artie Vierkant and Beatrice Adler Bolton, especially in the context of organized abandonment through the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. This is an especially reductive summary of organized abandonment, but the idea coined by abolitionist Ruth Wilson Gilmore is that the dominant members of society's political imagination is molded in such a way that certain groups of people are not worthy of opportunities and protections. So we saw this play out in the early stages of COVID with limitations to government assistance based on social status and the overall willingness to divert the general public's attention away from the suffering of essential workers and employees, the majority of whom were people of color, by dubbing them as heroes. Disability justice advocate Imani Barbarin, also known as Crutches and Spice on the internet, would critique this behavioral pattern of equating the pandemic to the battlefield via metaphor with the following caution. Anytime that society at large calls you inspiring or a hero, they're prepared to let you die. To date, we have 1,121,512 COVID deaths in the USA, projected to be much, much higher. And that's the bad news and the bulk of my academic research. So the good news, and what my public outreach focuses on, is this. In light of these darker circumstances, there are those navigating these bleak landscapes and helping their neighbors and others through a myriad of grassroots and informal approaches. The spring and summer of 2020 saw a remarkable and spirited display of solidarity and compassion across the nation. Ordinary folks rose up to fill in the chaotic voids left by larger institutions. The state's COVID response failures and negligence resulted in spontaneous actions of widespread mutual aid to manifest everywhere. So, this discussion is meant to celebrate the work of organizers in the present day who've proven that in times of despair, the most human thing about human beings isn't greater violence, but love and care. In this discussion, exactly 3 years after New York City went into COVID lockdown in 2020, panelists from the 5 boroughs will discuss their approaches to community organizing, as well as the importance of building social relations. The aim is to provide an opportunity for reflection on how care continues to be a powerful and boundless tool towards creating a better world on good days and orienting and preparing for future catastrophes on bad days. That's the most I'm gonna talk. Yay. Okay. I'm proudly joined today by some very special community organizers. Official titles and otherwise, we have comedian and anti-gatekeeper Michelle Adana.
Yo.
Educator and wordsmith Joshua Patash.
Oh my God.
Literacy advocate and street librarian Brandon Montez. Public policy advocate and plant connoisseur Russell Rivera. Unfortunately, council member Sandy Nurse is not joining us, but sends their warm regards. So, going this way over, I think. Could you please introduce yourself with your name, pronouns, and I am an organizer with fill in the blank?
Hi, I'm Russell.
My pronouns are he, him, and I'm an organizer with Plant Exchange.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Montez, and I'm a street librarian. I'm a founder of the Norwood Community Library, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Hey, Josh Potash, organizer with the Crown Heights Care Collective. He, him, and great to be here. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Michelle Adana. I'm she, they, and I'm an organizer for I'm Finna Talk.
And could you talk about what your organizations do, when or how it became to be?
Okay. Work. Okay. What does my organization do? Okay, so I'm Finna Talk has free workshops and open mics for queer, Black, and brown folks in New York City. How it came to be. I graduated in 2020. So you're saying March 20th, like I remember that being like a week where so many people just went home, like flew out. All this money was purchased like on transport and everything. So that's crazy that it's been 3 years. Um, but basically, I came back home after spending some time in my college town, and I was trying to find my community. And what that meant for me at that moment, I had just decided that I was gonna follow my dreams and like do what I actually wanted to do. And so I didn't have a job. And I'm trying to find some friends because my friends are scattered all over. Everyone's at home, right? And so I started working a job and I kept asking if I could do some, hey, can I throw this event for my community very specifically because you have the space, you know what's going on. But before that, I couldn't find my community, and I also didn't want to pay $25 to go somewhere. No shade. I know people got to make money, but damn. Um, and so I saw that there was a grant. I was just telling you, it was a New York City Artist Corp grant. It was 5K, and I was like, let's go. And I just filled it out, and I did it. I had my first event, and it was so well received that I was like, oh no, I have to keep doing this because I'm not the only one that wanted to come to this. You know what I'm saying? It was a packed room and so many happy people. And I'm like, I have to do it. So that's how it came about to be. Thank you.
The Crown Heights Care Collective started about a year ago. It was at that time when Eric Adams was like, probably the third time that he's like putting more cops on the subway and all that. And a few people just started tabling down on Eastern Parkway and like Utica, and just started talking to people like, do you feel safe when you see like 10 more cops at this station? Is this what safety is like for you? And from there it grew, and We Finna Talk is cool because like the intersections, the commonalities of like, we started having events and we want to make them fun, like a water gun fight for the kids in July, but let's also have a know your rights training at the same time. So it started with events like that, and is also trying to kind of be the glue in some ways between a bunch of different good organizations, Tenants Union, Mutual Aid in the neighborhood, and sort of trying to do a little bit of everything and build community power like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So the Norwood Community Library actually existed before the pandemic, but it's been going stronger since then. I would say I feel like I've engaged more people, believe it or not, because in 2018, for a long time, we didn't have a single bookstore in the Bronx. So in response to that, I started giving out free books, started chaining 2 crates near the bodega full of free books. But once the pandemic happened, I felt more responsibility with what I was giving away. So I set up a table and I started engaging more people that way. So that's been the new format. In addition to that, there's a little blue house that I put books into that a nonprofit in the area donated to the Norwood Community Library. So, we went from having 0 books, and during the height of the pandemic, the New York Public Library was closed as well, which I totally understand because these were excruciating circumstances. However, the Norwood Community Library did step up with providing free books. I also did 2 food drives. I've also given away Emergency Plan B. Also highlighted the voices of imprisoned men with a zine that I started sharing recently as well. So it's basically about building a community of readers in the Bronx. And it's been going strong through social media and through the neighborhood for the past 4.5 years.
So Plant Exchange, we started in December 2020. And I remember meeting one of our co-founders, Taylor, at Glitz, Gays and Lesbians in a Transgender Society. And I was volunteering there, just like, making sure everybody had like their COVID tests and all of that to get through. And I ended up meeting Taylor, who was interested in tech. And I was telling them that I'm obsessed with plants. I've had a collection since before the pandemic. I was actually inspired by one of our co-founders, Michaela. She was the one that got me into plants, and she's in the audience. So shout out to my
You.
leaders. And so we just organized, we connected, and we found a little space in Ridgewood, and we were able to just, reach out to people, ask if they could give propagations. Propagations are when you cut a plant. So it was like a really cute, nice way of like having people connect with each other and give something to another person. And so we did it by appointment because it was in 2020. So we didn't have like a gathering. We were really organizing with people that had been isolated for a while because of the lockdown. We were just like seeing that a lot of people were losing like lifeline resources, and they became super depressed, dealing with trauma, losing housing. And so plants is just like one way of connecting people. It's like the conversation starter for how we connect and, make a community that actually supports one another with the different skills that we have. And then I don't know, we just got like a lot of love, and my friends joined me. These are my high school friends, and then Marcy met us through Plant Exchange. So it really is just kind of like a cute little family to me that like organizes and like, gives out plants and supports other people.
Yeah. Lots of resource distributions and redistributions here. In what ways do you think your activities are different from that of a charity or the traditional nonprofit model? Is there an expectation for people when they receive items from you, so to speak?
I would like to jump on that question. Well, it's because it's so funny that you said if there's an expectation when somebody receives something from you. Even to this day, people expect there to be some type of catch for me giving them a free book. A lot of people like to say there's nothing in this life is free. However, I'd like to disprove that. I like to show that that's actually not so correct. I've given out free books, thousands of books for the past 4.5 years now. Some of them have been mine, but the majority come from donations from other readers in the Bronx and in New York City. So in a way, it's given everybody some ownership on helping their community. So I think that's different from the nonprofit model, the charity model, because usually it's funded from very moneyed people and trickling down for us. But with the community library, with mutual aid, the resources are going directly to the people. And I would say my costs are very low because I don't have a staff, I don't have a building. I'm able to get these books out every week almost, and I'm not checking income levels. I'm not checking. I'm not asking for your email, any of that stuff, any of your information. There's no catch at all. I just want you to read the book, really.
Yeah, I think so. The Crown Heights Care Collective also does free stores, and my previous organizing is Washington Square Park Mutual Aid, which is mutual aid. And I appreciate what was said about there's no income check, no nothing, no sobriety check, whatever. And so I agree with all that. And another way it differs to me is that charities, in my experience, are rarely seeking or structured to build power for the people they're working with, the receivers of these services or whatever. It can be empowering in some ways, but I think the community organizing that the Crown Heights Care Collective and a lot of people I've organized with are seeking to do is very intentionally to build power from the ground up rather than to preserve the structure where the person giving holds the power and the person receiving gets some good or service. Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like activities different from a charity. I mean, so unpopular maybe information, but I'm finna talk is actually an LLC, and that's only because we needed a bank account, and I couldn't figure out the nonprofit stuff because there's a lot of hands on the. So you have to have a board and a bunch of other stuff. So I would say we don't charge anything for our events, and we do it because it's a passion. Like it's passion. Like it's because we love the people we see, and we see different people every single time. So our community is just growing. But I think something to mention here, and I don't know if it we'll talk about it later, but I love doing it for free. I would do it 100 times, a million times for free. But it's also true that doing it by yourself is really hard. So I actually don't do it by myself. I have another co-organizer that fully takes on events themselves as well. And at the end of the day, we love it. We love it. Love it. Rent is due though. You know what I'm saying? So like as much as like I love doing it for free and I want to continue doing it for free, at some point there's gonna have to come into this aspect of like we have to charge for something. And I hate when that day is gonna come, but at the same time, the amount of time and effort that goes into certain things and like you can send all the emails for sponsorships, but they're not gonna answer. They haven't been. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I would just say like we love doing it for free. We try to make sure everyone does get educated when they come to an I'm finna talk. So you have a workshop, you have an open mic. I give you time to write. I give you the journal and the pen to write with. And then you have awesome things that I thought about. I said, what would I want to go if I wanted to go to an event and I got a goodie bag? What would I want in that goodie bag? And that's the orgs that I have in the event. So we have plant exchange, we have lost cannabis, so cannabis also goes home, free books, free baked goods, a bunch of really cool, dope stuff. And I really hope we could do it for as long as possible while being free and by it being us and literally having that feed face-to-face feedback with community members. What do you want to see next? Like literally there's no process. Just tell me what you want and we'll give it to you. Yeah.
Do you want to say? I don't necessarily think that this is like. There should be a compensation. There should always be a compensation. I think that that's definitely the model that you want to strive for. But lots of organizations in that process, they forget their roots, or even they're willing to sacrifice certain kinds of values in order to evolve. And I think that that question is more about, how are you different from the traditional models of for profit? It's like, I think that it would be, yeah, I want to see I'm Finna Talk become global, honestly.
Right, right. Imagine going to London, going to Colombia. You know what I'm saying? Like I would love to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna need someone to pay for the flight. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to. This is the thing, the difference. I don't want it necessarily to come from the pockets of my community, but someone gotta pay. Like, so maybe a company, and that's just like working on business development, which is a whole nother thing. But yeah.
Cool. Do you want to add to that how
Something's got to give when you're doing shit for free. Like something's got to give. Like I'm broke, bro. Like I work part-time and I'm a college student. All of my friends are, working, busting ass, paying rent, but we're spending like mad time organizing these events and taking care of these plants, and it's fun. Like I love taking care of plants. I love meeting other people, but the burnout is real. And that's I see us as a network more so than like some type of organization, because we're really just trying to like expand people's like interests and knowledge and have them connect with each other and are able to uplift each other. Like rich people got their own network. Like we should have our network to like move around the money. But with Plan Exchange, we're trying to strive for boundaries and then also learning how to survive in, like, you know, capitalistic society. We're also in the middle of a talk about how do we break even, not even make profit, but break even.
So in that, I kind of wanted to ask about, like, that's a good segue, I think, into what do some of these like internal conversations look like as you make these decisions of like, well, we should at least be breaking even, you know, we're trying to prevent the burnout, or like at this path is going to lead towards burnout, or you know, like how do you start those little like chit chats, and are they always amicable? And also, how do you structure with the organizing and tackling issues that affect your community, right? Because there's, I think, a lot of dynamics that you're balancing between the community organizers and the communities that you want to reach. So, yeah,
I'll go first.
sure.
What is the internal conversations? Okay, I think all of this goes back to like being a good team, and I had to learn like how to be a better leader, and I feel like I still have to continue to learn. But it's all about making sure you're considering your other team members and making sure like they feel, you know, good, happy, responsible, and like part of the team. And so internal conversations for us look like, hey, we're gonna have to do something. We're gonna hate it. We're gonna have to have like a 6 hour meeting. I'm not even playing with you. A 6 hour meeting, and we're gonna fill out this grant. And we're gonna do it because we want some money, right? And we want to, okay, so we want to pay ourselves. We're gonna do this grant. It's gonna take forever, but we're gonna have to do it. And so that's like one way that we try to at least, you know, try to take care of things without having to be super stressed or, you know, feel burnout. But to structure organizing, it's really like I think now we're starting to toy with the idea of maybe getting another person to help us, and even that's like, oh my god, I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't have no payroll. Don't tell this to the government, but like, you know, I'm just starting out here, and so we want to make sure that, you know, if we do bring someone on, they actually are part of this and they want to be here, and you know they have a passion for it. And also just making sure that we're taking the feedback from our community members. So we do surveys at the end of each event, and I sit through them and read them. I'm like, okay, what's today's news, you know, like how did we do, and also what do you want to see, because that's literally the reason we started. I mean, I started I'm finna talk is because I just want to do stuff with people. Like, what do we want to learn, y'all? Like, I'm down to learn whatever. We had a plan exchange workshop. I keep adding y'all, but we had a plan exchange workshop. Some folks came to a sewing workshop, a clothing swap. Like, it's whatever we want to do. And so it really goes, we have an internal conversation. We look at the survey. We say, okay, what feels possible for us right now? And we get it done. Yeah.
I'll say for me personally, sometimes I do feel burnt out because it is just only me. However, I'm the most consistent person I know, and so that's what's kept me going. And through friends and the use of social media, I've been able to filter in volunteers here and there to meet needs as they've come, and also pivot when needs have changed. So I guess I'm open to more members. However, I feel like I've been the most dedicated to it. But I'm also not the only person doing this. So like that's also like the free books and stuff. A lot of people do it. So I kind of have a lot of freedom to kind of explore different ways of doing things. And also like people who care have filtered in and out as their schedules have allowed them to.
I think just the one thing I was thinking about is that in my ideal world, it's like the community organizing itself is how, or the workplace, the job, whatever. And so for us in Crown Heights, it's not like a one-to-one. It's not like we perfectly represent the community. We're younger on average and stuff like that. But we're always trying to bring more people in, and so far we always are bringing more people in, and so there's definitely a lot of conversations around decision making, and if you have 30 people in a room, how do you make a decision, etc. But I think in terms of burnout, it's like, for me, it's easier because I walk 15 minutes to these meetings, or I walk down the block to go to an event, and it just new people filling in as some other person gets a busy job or has to do whatever, as some people, their capacity goes down, other people hopefully are coming in and coming up. So yeah.
I think also another thing that has helped me with my burnout is that I've made the decision at times not to spread myself too thin, and only help out when I can with the community when I can. I make my own hours. When I table, I will put out free books when I can. And also, like, I think people, the people I help have been understanding of that, because it's a free service just out of nowhere. So I guess also you got to, manage your relationships and set expectations. That can kind of help with the burnout. But at the same time, we're all human. So, burnout is very much expected, especially in, times like this where everything is spread very thin. Resources are spread very thin, especially across mutual aid. Thankfully, I don't have, I don't have to pay for the books. I get them all donated. So that really, and keeping costs low, I would say, as well.
So Plan Exchange has been moving into the direction of we need to work within our capacity. And my biggest issue is, letting other people take over. It
Nah, I hear you, Russell.
like, it's hard because it's like this creation that you like put like your sweat, tears, and like blood into. But I couldn't have done it at all without like my team members and my other co-founders. So I had to go through like a whole journey where I was like, listen, you got to let loose. You're doing too much, and you're no longer able to help Plan Exchange the way that you want to. And so I've been applying this, and I delegate. We have more people on the team, and it's great because I'm in school, so sometimes I can't do something, somebody else can. Also reminding people, just like, respect your boundaries. Like, if you know you're going to be tired at an event, like, don't come, because there'll always be another one. We've also had to make decisions about like what events we do want to do, because during the spring, bro, it be popping, and like we can't keep up. It's like 3 events a month, and I'm like, yo, like, I'm tired. So we really have to decide like what communities, like what location, who are we really trying to target. And so right now we're trying to reach the people that have been affected by the pandemic. So, like older residents, people within senior centers, children, really just trying to reach all ages and families, because we're trying to build a connection. So incorporating everybody is important. And so that's been like our main thing, just like respecting boundaries, working on our own pace.
At this point, I kind of want to interject. I am intimately familiar with all of your organizations. So I know kind of how frequently you meet and how often you host the events. But at this point, could you maybe just briefly mention how often you have the internal meetings with your organizations, and how frequently you have sort of these bigger community outreach events? Just if you don't mind.
You saying like how frequently?
Like how frequently are the I'm Finna Talk like big events, and then how often do you guys meet, or how often do you guys coordinate, or like how often do you check in on each other, like, hey, what's up, or like, do y'all feel like doing an event at the end of the month, or like how do you how often
So
does that work?
we got really lucky. We got a residency with Nowadays. Shout out Nowadays. We love you. So we were doing that, And so we usually, I haven't timed it out specifically, but we'll start talking about a month or a bit more away from the date that we have from the residency. And honestly, we're already talking about August, so like we just be on it now because we know how to work together, and we're like, okay, this is the flow. And yeah, we start talking about a possible collaborator, and then thinking about what we want the experience to be for the people there, and then reaching out to people. We would, I'd say we meet like twice a month, and that's not as much as I would want to, simply because we both have lives and we have jobs. And no, is that no, but I'm just saying, like, we busy. And then also I realized that, Michaela, grab your bag. Okay. Um, we just realized I like to have boundaries, and my co-organizer also is my friend. And so I had to put in some boundaries of like, all right, I love you, but sometimes we got to talk business, and when I'm talking business, I'm not playing around. I want to be serious cuz I also went to business school, and so I'm like,
You put your business cap on.
yeah, I'm a finance bro, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, let's talk budget, you know? And so I also had to create some boundaries. So like we're talking about work right now. And when we were talking about friend, I'm like, hey, aside from that, like you have to just say it. You just have to communicate. We're talking about something different. Um, because that was one of the lessons I had to learn, where the lines get blurred and that complicates stuff. So you really just, I feel like I had to put in strict boundaries for myself. Another strict boundary that we have is like not meeting on weekends as much as we can, because I work the whole week. I work every day of the week. So I'm like, I want to have a break, but also I want you to have a break, because already I wish I could be paying you a lot more and I can't. So at least let me respect your time. And so I'd say, so we have one, and I'm finna talk every month. We start planning maybe 4 or 5 weeks in advance, sometimes more than that, depending. Like June, send those dates out, you know what I'm saying? Because it's Pride. And so we just plan it, and then if we have another venue reach out or another collaboration reach out, sometimes we have 2 3 events, per month. But as Russell was saying, like it starts catching up with you. You start feeling a bit drained, and the next month I'm doing maybe one, because I have to balance that out for myself.
Just go down the line. Yeah, the Care Collective meets every week in person, and then a few of us do a book club on Zoom once a week, and then there's usually like one other. So there's different like some subgroup will have a Zoom meeting on earlier today, and then we try to do one event each month, so one bigger thing somewhere in the community. Yeah.
Could you sort of speak to the different kinds of groups or the subgroups or the cells that you have in your organization, real quick?
Yeah, I mean, initially it just started with like what's necessary. Like we need some sort of communications group chat sort of thing. We need programming, like people are going to focus on planning the events. But then, yeah, other projects started taking off. Like somebody wants to, well, in like a couple of years, somebody wants to have a worker-owned co-op. So there's a few people talking about that. There's a zine group, people talking about making a mutual aid zine. There's probably like 4 others, honestly, but it's, yeah, some of them have like 6 people, some have 10 in these groups, and some people are in 2, some are in 4. Yeah.
As far as the Norway Community Library goes, about every 2-3 months, I do a virtual book club. It's always with the opinions of the members of the book club in mind. So usually focus on anti-racist education, but we've also done books like Mexican Gothic and God Level Knowledge Darts. Like we try to have fun with it. So every 2 to 3 months, I do a virtual book club, and that started during the pandemic. During the height of the pandemic. But I also try to table at least once a week if I can for 2 to 3 hours in my neighborhood on the weekend. I do have a weekday job, but so I never table during the week. But I used to set up the crates Saturday and Sunday, set it and forget it. and pick it up at the end of the day and see what was left in there. But I found it's more organized if I table with the books. I keep an eye on what's going in and out, and also people stop by, bring their books, and drop them off, and like I like for that to happen, so people, other people in the Bronx have ownership about helping out the literacy crisis that we have going on. So because it's not just about me, it's about all of us. And I probably fill out the house that I put books into once or twice a week as well. So I'm pretty active, but it is a labor of love. So I don't feel too much. It doesn't feel too much like work. It is work, but I mean, I do love it. So the time kind of flies by.
I have to jump in and ask, what is the most donated book?
The most donated book is the Twilight series. Yes, but it always finds a new home whenever I set them out. So it's been circulating across New York City.
So okay, I'm gonna start over. Me, Michelle, and some of my co-leaders, we're from high school, so we've known each other like way back. And so when Michelle was mentioning the boundaries, we had to work on that so hard, like so hard, because at some point it felt like we were only talking about plan exchange, and then I was like, but we're friends and we need to do other shit. Um, and then we started having like new like volunteers and new like dedicated members, so we had to take feet. Like I'm really loosey goosey. I like to be all over the place. Like some of us have ADHD. Like we just be doing everything. I wear multiple hats in the organization. But we're trying to get our shit together. And so I'm organizing like monthly meetings. One of our members suggested Slack, so we did that and that changed the game. We got like different channels and whatever. Um, we do have like people that like are dedicated to like some departments, I guess you would call it. And so we'll all meet and like kind of connect with each other and like delegate tasks. So like we have somebody that does tech because I don't know nothing about computers. We got somebody that does designing and like social media because I don't like Instagram. Um, it's basically everything I didn't want to do, but like that's the whole point, find somebody that's good at what you don't want to do, and then it makes everything faster and smoother.
If you don't like Instagram, what's your favorite social media?
Tumblr.
All right, what's everyone's favorite social media?
I'll say I'm very fond of Instagram. However, Twitter is hilarious. So
I'm tired of all of them.
Yeah, no. Now I literally have a job looking at social media all day, and I'm like, I should read a book. Like,
I got you with some free ones.
all
Twilight.
right, yeah.
Okay, so I think we've gone over some of the conflicts that you might run into and where you create spaces of joy. It's kind of a tough one. Why do you believe that we saw so much collective action in 2020, from the proliferation of free stores, mass protests, teach-ins, and resource distribution or redistribution? Yeah.
I just feel like we were sad. One, we lost a lot of people in our own communities. It wasn't something like, oh, in this part of town. No, it was on your block inside of your like apartment building, and we lost a lot of people. And so I think people want, first of all, you had to choose very specifically who you were going to be around in 2020, right? What was it, the cubes, no, the circles,
Odds.
the pods. I was so close. And it was, everyone had to choose the type of people not the type of people, but who they wanted to be around, because they had to be like, you had to be checking in with your friends. You had to be checking in with the people that you were living around, because everything felt so lonely and it was very sad. And I just feel like I just remember going to like the food pantry and like I was with my friends, like shopping around. And I was like, what a beautiful experience. Like, I feel like food pantry maybe had a taboo at some point. I don't feel it anymore in my community anymore. Because you go and you're like, yeah, we need food. Like, let's go. And so that was free, and like people were donating, volunteering their time to be there and everything. And I just feel like people saw that a lot of our institutions and structures really didn't know what to do and didn't really have any help for us, like other than like stay home and like maybe they might give you money. I'm not sure. But we saw like everything we're like asking for. Yo, the CDC didn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, let's figure this shit out by ourselves. I feel like was very much the energy of 2020. Like, these people don't know. It's literally chaos in the streets. Like, let's just figure it out ourselves. And I just feel like people really like took responsibility of what was going on, at least in their capacity and where they could and how they could. And it's really beautiful. We came out resistant because we had to. Yeah.
I'll agree. I agree with feeling like you have to take responsibility, because I feel like so much of leadership was very disorganized at the time. Still, and there's still so many unclear answers as well. And the thing about mutual aid is that it allows us to react to communities in crisis and step in ourselves. So I think that's why so many people were driven to helping out during the pandemic.
I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Sunset Park. I'm gonna tell you, we got down bad for like we're still kind of down bad, but we're like bouncing back. But it's mostly immigrant. It's low income. We have a lot of Spanish speakers, and then you go a few avenues up, and everybody, is Chinatown. And so I watched like a lot of businesses, which are like actually local owned businesses, and like the families live upstairs. Like they lost their stores. I also live right next to the NYU emergency room, and just like having the ambulance pass by every day was like super intense. We also have like substance abuse problems. So you just saw like everybody like openly passed out in the street, smoking crack, not really caring like who saw because it's a family neighborhood. So it felt really sad. I was also a teacher, and all my kids were like isolated, and we were doing virtual schooling. And so, like, at some point, after being on the computer for like 300 hours, like back to back, my kids just like, they were really depressed, and they're like 7 years old, and they haven't gone out in like 3 months. So at some point, it's like something, you got to do something. Yeah. Oh, and I was gardening with them.
Yeah, I feel like we've been kind of quote unquote gaslit with how hard it's been the last few years. You know, it's it was it's already hard times, but we fell on harder times with this pandemic that shut down the world, and I think we're still going to be feeling the effects for a while. And so, me personally, I wanted to help how I could, and I'm sure everyone else on the panel would agree that they want it to be a change, and that's why I encourage other people to volunteer when they can as well, if they're able to, because I think there's also a lot of power within us that maybe we don't always realize.
I think everybody said most. I think the big thing is like we have to do it ourselves, which is what mutual aid is all about to me. Not waiting for somebody else to do it for you, for the government to do it for you or whoever. And people, I mean, I wish it hadn't taken such a tragedy, a global pandemic, but I'm glad that people responded by like creating the organizations themselves, creating the ways to provide what was not being provided ourselves. Yeah.
Speaking from a sort of like this is me answering as well, by the way, not a question. I think with the murder of George Floyd and also the rise of anti-Asian hate crimes, what I saw in my community was this realization for a lot of us that our proximity to whiteness was not enough to keep us safe. And I think that there was, unfortunately for this discussion, I was not able to get like a specifically New Yorker Asian community focused mutual aid, but there have been a lot of movement in that space since. And I think it's just that with 2020, what we saw aside from mass death and the normalization of mass death was just this the fact that we can be abandoned at any time, I think was just this like massive realization collectively. Going back to my research, which is really depressing, but let's keep it hopeful, man. Sorry, I always go there. Sorry. So yeah, I guess a little bit we've been able to answer how has the global pandemic affected your perspectives on problem solving as a community, and when have you witnessed moments of inspiration or dejection?
I think people just talked about some of it in a really good way. But I think the other element of it is like the pandemic is so clearly global and international and interconnected that I realized that they would like a lot of people are doing a lot of good things, but it wasn't necessarily enough. Like there just needed to be another level of education and building power and like systems and seeing that the pandemic, capitalism, white supremacy, the policing, border, like these structures are global, and I think a lot of people realize that in a different way, but feeling the impact of it so directly as the whole world shut down together, just drove it home in a different way.
I think the pandemic made me want to hear people's stories like really, really badly because there was a lot of death and it was back to back to back to back to back. And it made me want to be like, okay, we're losing like a lot of information right now, y'all. Like, I want to hear about this person because they were now just a number. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know. I think that's why like it's called I'm finna talk because I give out journals is because I want to hear your story. I want you to write it down. If we don't write it down, how are people generations from us gonna know about this? Like, yeah, I don't know whatever technology there's gonna be in 2050 or whatever, but like a piece of paper and some writing on it, like has traveled through centuries, right? And so like we should do that too. Witness moments of inspiration. I guess when people come together, but there was honestly so much sadness. And I think now there's a whole lot of like, COVID's over. And it's like, oh my God, for some people, it will never be over. And for some people, like, they lost so much. And it sucks because it's almost like grasping at something that's like it's like sand, right? What is it, holding sand or something? It just feels like it's slipping, and like now you're this old head talking about COVID. It's like, no, it just, you know what I'm saying? Like it affected us so real, and people don't want to talk about it anymore, you know? So I just feel like, yeah, it definitely made me want to hear people out more because it made me think of life and death. And I was like, so we have to talk about this. We have to talk about our lives, especially as like a queer Latinx person trying to follow their dream. For me, this felt like so specific and something that nobody in my family has done before. And so I'm like, well, I need to write this down because in college I was reading all the essays of like past queer organizers in New York City, and they were writing it all. So I'm like, I have to do this too. I have to figure out how I'm doing this, and I'll write it down through it. Yeah.
I'll say, I guess I want to reaffirm that, I think lessons I've learned during this, and I guess some things that I've courage that's been encouraging with is the resilience of people, and also, how like you yourself can make a difference, and that'll help you see that even in a small way we can have impact. So I think that's something I've seen throughout the pandemic, like people making differences in small ways, which is way better than nothing. You know, it's for me kept the hope going.
Um, okay. Before the pandemic, I was pretty ragey and angry, and I just like had a lot of like, like unexpressed like emotions about like the way society treats people, the way things go. And then I think like the pandemic and the lockdown, because I do live with somebody that has collapsed lungs, so they're like very sensitive to COVID. So I was very isolated for a while, and I think it broke me, and I just like got to a point where I was like, I have to do something different because otherwise I'm gonna lose my mind. Because I've always been like somebody that thinks in like solving problems, but like if there's no outlet, it just you have ruminating thoughts. So I feel like Plant Exchange was like that moment of inspiration where I was able to connect with people, and actually like express my thoughts and like have people also agree with them. Um, Dejection. I don't know. I was dealing with a lot of the things that people we were serving were dealing with. Like, I remember medication was like so fucking hard to get because like there was just no doctors available. So like what do you do if like somebody's going through withdrawals because they haven't had their medication in 4 days? That's like a really tough situation. But I'm also somebody that's like, work with what you got, and you'll figure out a way.
Yeah. Lockdown was when I started dyeing my hair crazy colors. I went green first, and then I went blue, and then I went teal. And what color is this? No, I wanted purple. Thank you. I think for me, it's bleak, but it wasn't until we saw kinds of who was really being affected by COVID. The people who couldn't afford to work from home, who are made up majority people of color. I think that was something. It was sort of always. I think everyone sort of knew, but there was proof, and I think that is it's horrifying, but at the same token, I think that it's measured. I mean, it's definitely something that gives me I'm blanking on a word. I'm blanking on the word, but I think that COVID proved something that I always felt. Yeah. And just the inequality in New York State. New York State has the highest inequality of all the 50 states. And there were some people that were able to, go upstate and just like escape the big city. There was a lot of resources that exist, just weren't distributed equally, I think and when the stimulus checks hit and all these mutual aids were given portions of it by people that didn't really need it, I think that was just like a really great way of seeing how the resources can be when the people have a choice and a power and it exists materially. It can reach the right people as it always should have. So that gave me hope throughout COVID. But yeah, mostly dejection at this point, 3 years in, truthfully. But that's just because my research material is into that. Okay, so this is a fun one. In what ways does social media stunt or propel awareness of social causes? How do you see it play a positive or a negative role in movement building? What's up? Why are you chuckling?
Nah, because I got such strong opinions about social. I feel like social media is like a double-edged sword because like you just got people saying shit and like people will just like take it as like fact. And I'm like, bro, like you had 2 sentences. to form an opinion. Don't you want more information? And so that's where a lot of my anger comes from, because there's just like on Instagram, somebody will post a story and like, people will screenshot it and spread it around. And then it turns out that it was actually false and somebody fact checked. I'm like, this is bullshit, bro. Like, you should have gone on Google and done your own research. But I also, it helps plan exchange, because I do have great I do have great social media coordinators. I don't like it, but they're able to like do the designs and like take pictures and show people what we do, so that they're more inclined to come to our events, and spread the word. That's how we've gotten most of our collaborations, honestly, through social media. People reach out to us like through DM, and we'll be like, all right, hey.
That's how I found you.
I'll agree with that. That social media definitely is a double-edged sword. On one hand, I would say I've had such a supportive community on there that has continued to provide me books or different resources, share information. I've also built some long-lasting friendships in the community thanks to social media and the Norway Community Library. However, social media can also be a place for great negativity as well, and I try not to interact with that too much, but it is out there, and I can also empathize with like that can be triggering for people, especially if you're trying to put yourself out there with a new organization. It can be very intimidating and it might even stop someone from helping out their community because of how intimidating that can be. So it definitely is a double-edged sword. However, I've been very fortunate, but you kind of have to pick and choose your spots, I would say.
Yeah, I think they covered it. The only other thing I'll say, other than double-edged sword, and I agree with all of that, is the one danger I saw a lot in 2020 is thinking that like social media was the organizing. Like if I do the right post and it gets like a good one-off protest because it's June 2020, so in this moment it's going to go viral or whatever. But kind of tying back to the other question too, the one thing that's inspired me is that the way people not just like persist and persevere, but have kept evolving their organizing, like from protest to mutual aid to community organizing or whatever the next step is. And a little evidence of that here.
Okay. Mr. Metaverse works for me. I'm so sorry. We do all of our promotion via Instagram. Like we tried Eventbrite, but that wasn't even giving. So we went back to Instagram. And it's literally the only platform we use. Um, and all of our marketing budget goes towards boosting our posters. And I will say that it has brought us literally our whole community. Um, oh, not that. And we have found so many new people through like literally the Instagram ad is working. Thank you for clicking. And you know, honestly, we've had a positive. Like, I'm sorry. Like I know it. Like social. No, yeah, but like I know social media itself is crap and it's fake. Like it's so fake. You were just saying that, but like. I honestly like when I was younger and in high school, I ultimately had to figure out you have to delete Instagram to stay healthy and sane. Or at least turn off the notifications and just have a limit to how much you can stay on it. But social media for I'm finna talk and collaborating with people has been amazing. Like we really just reach out to someone, just DM them, just comment, just like, and people are just willing to work. Especially, I don't know, are y'all not DMing? Like y'all should be DMing. Is like the best thing ever. And I just feel like very positive towards the community we've cultivated on Instagram. And people really like seeing like their pictures of their friends or themselves, and so it helps us like not only with our numbers obviously, but also just creating that community right there on that platform. and trying to like be silly with our posts. And it's not so serious. Ew, like we just keep saying, what is it? We're about to have an event. It's called We Finna Get Fruity. Literally every post is like, are you ready to get juicy with it? Like everything is like, we're just having fun here. So I really like it because there's almost like no wall. There's no brick. Like I'm right there. You just see me on your phone. I'm right here, girl. Like come to our event. So I don't know what that's called, but it's instead of it being like B2B, it's B2C and business to business, business to consumer. But it's like they're right there, and I don't have to go too far to reach them. And also on Google Ads, if you like, you can choose an audience very specifically. So I have it like very specifically in New York, like from this age to this age, and these people like to listen to Bad Bunny and like very specific things under that. And I feel like that really really helped. Y'all listen to Bad Bunny. It was is it likes to eat ramen. Like I know you. And it really really helps, and it's the reason my community is like where it is now. Yeah.
If I could also add, like, social media is free, so it helps keep costs down. You're able to engage an audience on a free platform. They're getting other things from you, but it's for the most part, free platform for you to and directly interact with the people you're, helping, serving, interacting with.
I feel like for this set of people, though, it's like because we have such a foundation that we're working off of, where you have goals that are set and you have the life experiences. It doesn't seem like we're able to navigate the negativity mostly, where it's like, okay, well, this is just people are just posting shit, posting whatever, and you can just kind of not feel as morally dejected. I'm also feeling like a strong age difference here that I'm like, I don't know, personally hurt by. I'm
Am
much
I
older than you.
older?
I am much older than
Oh,
you.
We are the same
But
age.
and yes, we are the same age. Yeah, absolutely. I'm feeling like oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, yes, you are. For me, at least, I don't know. I said that I won't talk that much, but then here I am. Thank you. Yeah, social media has brought me a certain kind of awareness. Like when I was trying to create this event, I wasn't going to do hybrid. I wasn't going to do online. But then I found the Louisville Mutual Aid in Kentucky. I just like stumbled on their live event. And it was about rebuilding infrastructure for community members who were devastated by Tornado Way. And I was like, what is Tornado Way? I've never heard of this thing. And it's supposedly, this is reductive, but Kentucky is expecting a huge population increase by people from surrounding states that are devastated by tornadoes. When they are displaced, they'll eventually be moving there. It's an inevitability. And at the present juncture, Kentucky and Louisville doesn't really have the infrastructure to be able to house these future incomers. And I think that, I really just got super lucky stumbling on that information, that kind of initiative, that kind of forward thinking attitude. So, yeah, I just have to be really careful though, because then I find out about protests happening in Iran and I can't really do much. Or, there's when the former prime minister of Japan was assassinated, that really affected me in a way that I could not have fathomed, where, people that I knew were sharing about like elders just being torn apart, like regardless of the checkered past. He's on the wrong side of history for sure, but it's still just very traumatizing. And that there's a distance with social media, I think, and the internet landscape that I need to come to terms with, where I can only focus on what is in my control. That's like where I've got to channel all my energy. So this is my favorite question. as I've already mentioned to the panelists. Okay, so in your opinion, how do you see organizing styles differ in the leftist and progressive spaces as opposed to maybe right wing or moderate spaces, so-called liberal spaces? And do you believe that one might be more effective than the others? Obviously, no one here is particularly right wing conservative, so maybe you can't really speak to that kind of space. But how do you believe that we're struggling, or where do you think that we are not doing? We're having infighting, so to speak. Where are we infighting, and where is the struggle here?
Okay, I don't know too much about politics, and I honestly try to stay out of it because they all making money. That's it. But what I see here in this question, I'm seeing like what are kind of some flaws, unfortunately. Right wing, I see them, they're 10 toes down for each other. Everyone is like, really? Yeah, we hate them too. Yeah, we hate them too, you know? But leftist, progressive, there's a lot of division. And I understand why, not everyone has the same vision for the same reason because they experienced this thing the same time. Like, it's just not. So we don't have each other 10 toes down. We're like constantly like, not commenting or deconstructing, like, well, that actually means this bigger thing. And we're just not 10 toes down for each other. And again, I understand why. Do I believe one is more effective than the other? I mean, again, all of this, they're making money. Like every politician makes so much money. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, if every community member cared and was just like 100% there with the next person, obviously we'd be stronger. But it also makes sense why we have these divisions where we have them. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, I agree that the right often, a lot of times, has a lot of unity and the left has less of it. And I think so. One thing from that for me is conflict, critique, criticism on the left. How do we do it lovingly? How do we be in solidarity while still doing that? And a lot of it's the accepting of it. Like a lot of us can be bad at accepting the criticism or having the disagreements or the conflicts. So learning all of that. And then it's an interesting, you just made me think of, I feel like it's a really big difference to be organizing like on a campaign versus organizing in your neighborhood. Like the people I organize with are on the left, abolitionists. But maybe before all that, we're just like a bunch of neighbors. And so it's a lot of it just feels, we're not perfect at it at all, but a lot of it feels easier when that's the basis. And the last thing I'll say is that I think there's a really big difference between a politics of hate and, like we all hate the same people politics, which does unite the right, but leads them to not really be able to build the stuff that I think hopefully the left is building, something coming from like love or positivity or constructive versus hatred. And so hopefully we're building something up, a movement, organizations versus a politics that's about tearing things down.
Now myself, I would say I'm probably more left leaning. However, I'm willing to work with people, willing to have a discussion with anyone. I'll say where I guess where it is one more effective than other. I haven't seen a right wing mutual aid collective really out there. If they want to start that, then like prove me wrong, but I haven't seen them out there. And also, I feel like on the right, they kind of make things more about why is it your fault. We saw recently with comments from individuals like not to bring his name up, but I'm gonna bring his name up, like Ben Shapiro recently saying things like it's not that expensive to feed children, and like advocating against having school lunch in school. So like I kind of feel like on the right, it's more about it's your fault. um, and not so much about community. And then when it is about community, sometimes faith gets tied into there, and then that's about calling you a sinner and you don't fit into a certain box. So I would say if the right would like to be more involved in mutual aid, then maybe focus less on like what it is that why like why people are turning towards you, and that people are turning towards you because everyone needs help, and also we all bleed. We don't. We're all a part of this. So let's not argue over whose God is better and stuff like that, which I feel like happens in the on the right.
Do you want to answer or no?
Well, I just have questions about these questions. Um,
Yeah,
Because I feel like this could go again. This is going in like a lot of different directions. Because again, like the space of like like what's the objective? Is this like a political objective, or is this like a societal objective, like trying to influence your community? Um, Also, like I would want to see like the demographics of like the right wing spaces versus the democratic spaces, and seeing which one is more homogenous. Because again, Michelle was mentioning how it seems like the left is super fragmented because it's almost like just a group of everybody who's been othered. Um, w- and everybody's been othered for a different reason, but it's by the same like institution. So those are like I feel like this is a whole conversation on its own.
it was my favorite question for that reason. Um, Personally, I just struggle with like various family members. I think that part of like it's a self reflection. Sorry, this is not the right place to start doing that. But
Reflect.
yeah, but I mean,
I guess I also say that I would say leftist and progressive spaces are more likely. From what I've seen, and again, I invite people to show me other examples. But for instance, one of the pivots with the Norwood Community Library was helping to provide clothing and other materials to the different migrant families coming to New York. On the right, they're the ones, politicians on the right are the ones, sending these individuals to different states without the things they need into the cold. So, it's been people on the left who have been trying to help, but also like people at the center, like giving them very little, and the people on the left having to step up even more.
Well, they're sending us migrants because we're sanctuary cities. So we're like one of like the few cities that will like always take migrants. And so Republicans are trying to like basically flood sanctuary cities throughout the US. And we already have like super fucked up infrastructure. So it's like because we can see the mess that's happening. Like we have a huge like homeless crisis, a huge homeless population that we don't even have shelters to support. And then they're sending migrants on top of that because they know that this is the situation that we're in.
So
Already spread so thin.
yeah, what were you saying about your family? Was what? No, I wanted to talk about that too. But what were you saying?
I don't know what I was gonna say about
Work.
my mom.
No, I was gonna say something about my mom too. I feel like I came out to my mother in 2020 because I was with her for a month after I got kicked out of well, not kicked out of school, but we had to leave the campus. And I was like, yo, it was so much anxiety. I was like, nah, I'm gay, sis. I'm a dip too. And so I literally went back upstate to my college because I still had my lease going. And I was like, I can't live with you right now. But I learned a lot about, I don't know if you were just reflecting on family or politics with family, but I learned a lot about how progressive my mother was. But oh my God, how conservative she was too. in various different forms. And it was honestly one of the first times that we were able to share about like protesting and how we felt about it. Now, you have to understand my mom is a black woman. She's from Colombia. And so she's had a tough life already. And so going into, June 2020, I was like, Mom, this is horrible. Like, I'm sorry if if you're seeing images or feeling a type of way. And then we got to talking in a way that I didn't know I could do with my mom. I was like, yo, fuck, and she was like, yo, fuck. I'm sorry to the professor. But we were just really like, oh fuck, okay, you feel this too, word. And like I feel like that was a very nice bonding moment. But there was also stuff going on, and I was like, what and why? And and I just feel like being in a tough situation like that really opened my eyes to like, okay, like people can like start opening up and talking about like how they really really feel, because like we have to talk about it low key. Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to talk about my mom. I think in the leftist spaces or the progressive spaces or the not right wing, for sure, there's more to lose. Some people are in those spaces, even if they think in more measured ways because they can't afford to otherwise, is how I think that the left or the progressive or the non right wing operates. Some people are there without really much of a choice. They have to bat for each other because they don't really have a choice. And I think that that can be hard because given the opportunity, I think I've seen people show their true colors, so to speak, right? Like once they are comfortable or once they are able to hide certain kinds of identities, they really do benefit from existing infrastructures. We really saw that in the HIV and AIDS crisis. Um, you know, uh, health movements like ACT UP could have done more for everyone. But once those that were in the dominant speaking positions, they got what they needed, they kind of abandoned the rest of the folks that uplifted them or got them to where they were, like people of color or women, and or people of color who are women or present as women at least. And I think that can be part of the fractures that you were describing earlier, that it is more diverse, but that diversity can be troubling. Thank you for answering my favorite question. I know that was hard. Okay, so we're almost done here. Thanks for everyone for being here. Thank you everyone for your time and energy, especially the panelists. So within the context of organizing, what do you believe people do too much of or too little of? And what do you wish more people did more of? Too much complaining?
No, I don't know. I honestly don't have an answer for this question. Except, what do you wish more people did? Pop out more. Like, come to the events, bro. Like, we know you're tired. We know you have a capacity, but like, if it happens once a month, we put so much energy into for that to happen once a month. But I don't have another suggestion for the other two. Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Yeah, I'll add that I guess every organization or collective or group has their different needs. I guess one thing I wish more people did more of was show up for my book clubs, I guess. So anyone who wants to join can join Norwood Community Library on Instagram. So, yeah.
I think every group is different, so it does make it a hard question. But this is too big picture maybe, but my thought is that there's a lot of good things we can spend our time doing that s- as in an old life at a different organization, we were doing a lot of good work, but what didn't have any long-term impact really. It's easy to give somebody a sandwich every day, and then 365 days later, they're still just coming back and getting that sandwich. And that's not on them. It's systemic, as we were talking about. Kind of saying like the right blames the individual. I think here we understand it's systems. But I think it's on us as organizers to kind of find how we can orient our energy towards. So like one of the reasons I love a book club, and I also participate in a book club, is that like this education, political education, is a long-term outlook, and building community is a long-term outlook to me. So that's my thing.
Just tying back to Josh, we also want to focus on distributing knowledge and education. I have a passion for juvenile justice and family structures. I was a teacher at some point. So for me, focusing on education is super important. And so we have been like trying to like give more worksheets and like guides on like, toxic stress and like ACEs. Just like expanding like mental health, because I think people do too little of thinking about themselves. I think they don't really focus on what's going on inside of them. And that's why we experience like a lot of apathetic feelings. I also am in public policy, so when I'm in class, I find that people don't really have an imagination anymore when it comes to public policy. It feels like they have to make public policy within like this existing structure and like within the failures that we have currently going on. So like whenever we're talking about like legislation, like there's always like 50-60% of the class is going to be like, that can't happen, that's not possible. And it's like, why is that not possible? Like, why can't we do that?
Lessons that you've learned that you would like to pass on to other organizers? Like, what would you say to baby you?
I would say don't forget that why you're doing this, and also don't forget that you have a lot of power. Also, don't forget that you're putting yourself out there, so you could fail, but you just try again. But failure is definitely a possibility with almost anything, especially something like mutual aid. Sometimes people don't trust it, even also, or also like your resources are spread low. Also, like, is it sustainable over a long time? So just not to forget that it can fail, but however, you're also very resilient, and just like you've answered other challenges in your life, you can answer this one. Well, at least in a small way, in your own way.
It's funny, as Russell was talking, I was thinking like one of the biggest things to me is experiment. Like you might fail, but I have a friend who does public policy, and it's just amazing how like people can see that the solutions being proposed for our problems aren't working, but then still stay stuck within that same framework. And I don't know how that works, but experimenting. A lot of mutual aid groups are experiments, I think, and a lot of solutions to things like community safety. Like if we're going to do stuff other than police, we need to experiment because they've just been given all the resources and the dominant, power or whatever. I think the only other thing I would say is like community, and that word gets thrown around like 24/7, but building the relationships with the people you are organizing with or with your neighbors, like to me, that's the foundation of it. And then there needs to be structures and ideas and plan and whatever, but like if you don't have relationships with the people you're organizing with or the people, that's the foundation for me.
I'd say know what your goals are. Like, why are you doing this? For who are you doing this? And why? Yeah, I said that. And always just keep going forward. Like literally pa'lante, like just keep going forward, because even if you have an event and it's not amazing, fuck it, you try next time. The people that need to be aligned with you will be aligned with you eventually. And like success doesn't happen overnight, and success could also mean a lot of different things. So just keep going and just believe in you and what your community needs, because that's all there is, right? Like why other reason are you doing this other than for you and your community? And like honestly, like I'm finna talk had our first year anniversary, and it was huge and it was crazy. But we had an event in February, and I was like, that is my most successful event. And it honestly wasn't because of the size of the event, because there wasn't as many people as we usually have there. But it was because I had so much fun and I was able to enjoy the event, and I just felt everyone's love from the event. And I was like, oh my God, this is success right now. And I feel like just creating your own version of success, and always like just making sure you're not gatekeeping. Don't be mean. Like just let's work together. You know what I'm saying? Like always just collaborate with other people, because that's only always gonna help both of you. Yeah.
If I could add one more thing, I would say something we used to say at one of my jobs was that feedback is a gift. Um, you may, sometimes somebody might come at you with some negativity. However, that might also be an opportunity to learn. Sometimes someone might just be being a hater. However, they might be trying to tell you something that maybe you didn't realize, that is a change you can make, or is like or an opportunity to improve.
Any thoughts, Russell?
What gives me hope? I don't know. My co-leaders are like the best. Honestly, I have a really fun time working with my team leaders. We get along really well, and that's why I agree with Josh that like building like really, I guess, like have like a nice intimate relationship with somebody that you work with, because organizing is so emotional. Like it like like we're serving people that like we have so much empathy for, so it takes a lot of emotional labor, and like you need people to support you to do that. And then also, please be honest about your capacity. It is better to underestimate than overestimate. um if you can't do something, you like speak up. Like I struggle with this. Like if I'm stressed out, I don't be telling people I'm stressed out, and then I'm like bugging, and that's not that's not very conducive. So really just like speaking your mind and being honest and being like, yo, I'm tired, like I need to step back. um and like when I'm ready, I'll be here to perform at whatever capacity I have.
Cool. And what gives you hope right now? What keeps you going? What prevents you from giving in to rhetorics of nihilism?
What gives me hope is that as much as I've done for this community has done a lot for me. That might be such a Leo thing for me to say, I'm sorry, but it's like I was able to start a business at 23. I'm able to connect with people all over the nation right now, maybe around the world, we'll see. And that feels crazy, because this is only something I dreamed of. And I've heard of other people doing it, but I was like, could it be me? Could I do that? And so what gives me hope is that people fuck with it. People pop out. People want to do it. They're talking. I'm in other spaces, and they're like, "You do? I'm finna talk." I'm like, "Oh my god, yes. Tell me, how do you know? Like, what do you want to see? Like, where do you want to? And it's all about. And I just feel like it's gonna keep going, because one, I love it so much. Like I have to do it. Every bone in my body needs to do it. We skipped 1 month in December because of, I want to give everyone a break. We've done a lot, and so let's not do an event in December. Let's just have a break. And I was so sad. Like it was an emotional thing. How Russell was saying, like I was like, damn, where's my family? I haven't seen people in so long, and especially like I have an immigrant mother, so half of my family is in Colombia, the other half, whatever. And so it's like, damn, I really don't have I mean, my mom, yeah, period. But like, we also need that, what is it, chosen family. And I feel like I've been still like searching for it a little bit. And I've met so many amazing people through Unfinna Talk. So like it almost feels selfish for me to be happy about Unfinna Talk. But like I'm so happy about it because it's like a two-way street and everyone's helping each other. And what prevents me from giving into rhetorics? Listen, I decided to do this and follow my dreams and all of that in the scariest possible time. And through it all, there was no straight line. There was no path written out for me. I just had to fucking figure it out. And through that process, I was really skeptical. I was like, what am I doing? But then you continue to do it. You just keep on going. How I said, pa'lante. You keep on going. You keep on just going forward, and you realize, all right, we're gonna do what we're gonna do. This is part of the journey. Like again, it doesn't happen overnight. So I just keep going. I just go forward. Yeah.
When you were saying like it feels selfish to do, you know, all that, it's like I think it's so crucial. It's like I think if for me, if the building community and relationships not like wasn't a huge source of like joy, then I wouldn't be doing it. I don't think. I mean, I want to do the right thing with my life in a lot of ways, whatever, but I've been in spaces where I'm trying to do the right thing and it feels draining and in like, and this does too sometimes, but it's balanced out by the joy, and like a depth. It's I don't know how to explain it exactly, but whatever's like deeper than joy. To me, it's not it's not always fun, but it's like rewarding in a deep way. And so I think that's what like. Ooh, I think I spoke too close. And made myself forget. But yeah, it's like it's not really about, well, A, there's like the hope is a discipline sort of thing, like practicing it. But B, like even a lot of this work isn't looking that far into the future in some ways. It's like here right now, working together, making this event or bringing people together or meeting or building relationship, like it's good right here and now in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll say for me, let me see. What keeps me going is, even though I'm in Brooklyn right now, it's the Bronx. The Bronx is what keeps me going. BX all day. I'll say it here in Brooklyn. I'll say it outside too. I also have it tattooed on my arm as well. So it's a place that changed the entire world, and I'm happy to help contribute toward my own community there and help other people realize that they can contribute to the betterment of their community too. So that's also what keeps me going. And I'll truthfully say that I get a lot of life from all these interactions I've had throughout the years, helping people build their own personal libraries in their home, helping schools, helping different organizations, either helping different families. It's very humbling and also very exciting experience being able to be a part of positive change and helping people realize that they also have the power to be a part of positive change in the communities that they are from.
Honestly, what keeps me going is Plan Exchange, because it gives me like a direction and a mission and like somewhere to like focus my energy into. I'm from New York. I grew up in the Lower East Side. That shit was ghetto. It was like really rough. And then, we moved to Brooklyn. Growing up here, like I've lost people at a really young age. So like I can't really afford to be nihilistic because other people aren't here and like aren't able to do that. So like, like I'm here, so I gotta do what I gotta do. Like, there's nothing else to do. You gotta keep going. Otherwise it's depressing and you're just gonna, yeah.
Okay, that concludes my questions.
Yay.
Thank you for a very fun evening, and I feel very uplifted. I can't even believe that this was possible. So I'm just pleased with myself.
Yeah, shout out you,
Thank
Mia.
you.
Yeah.
Yay. And I guess that's how late is it? I'm so sorry to bother you all, but it's 8:05. Okay, yeah. That's good. That's good. I
Almost
think we are
perfect.
going to
Perfect.
conclude the evening. Thank you all. so
Shout out to
much.
Planet Exchange.
Shout out to Planet Exchange. Thank
Shout
you,
out, Mia.
Russell. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Josh. Thank you,
Yay.
Michelle, Donna. And bye, everyone online.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
If the professor's still there, it's giving A plus.